Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Carlin, and this is my personal intro video for EDL 951. I am currently the Assistant Director of Special Education in Hays, Kansas. I work for the West Central Kansas Special Ed Cooperative, which is hosted by USD 489. We also have 3 other districts in our cooperative. Those include Victoria, Ellis, and La Crosse. We serve about 4,000, total student population of 4,000, and we have about 920 IEPs that we service. We have 80 certified personnel and about 140 classified or personnel, including paras, secretaries, and other support staff. This is my second year as an administrator. Previously, I was a school psychologist, 3 years also in Hays, and then 4 years in other Western Kansas cooperatives. So this is my 9th year in education, and I'm really enjoying it being an administrator. There are definitely challenging days and difficult decisions that have to be made, but I'm really liking the position that I'm in currently. In addition to special education and things related to that, my career interests center around positive behavior interventions and supports and social emotional learning. I'm currently the CHAMPS trainer for our district and have been involved with PBIS implementation in 2 districts, as well as MTSS implementation in 3 different districts. In addition to my education stuff, I also have authored a children's book called Bug and Boo that helps teach social emotional skills to kids, young kids, and then also have written a chapter in a textbook on scientific writing and psychology. I'm married, I have 2 kids, and I'm an Army veteran. I was in the Army Reserve for 8 years and spent a year deployed to Southwest Asia. Oops. With this assignment, I've kind of reflected. I get to work really closely with district administrators in Hays as well as in the cooperative district, and I'm really lucky because my office is right next to the superintendent. I'm in meetings and spend time with the assistant superintendent and the director of finance and my director of special education all the time. All the conversations all the time about directions for the district, how we can support different issues, everything from trying to be more consistent with our paras, trying to improve onboarding, trying to improve teaching in our classrooms, trying to get our new teachers up to speed better, and all those different decisions that kind of come their way. But with that, I've kind of reflected on what I've seen, particularly our new superintendent just started this year, seen him and our assistant superintendent, how they've had to react to different issues in a relatively large district compared to others in the area. I kind of broke those into areas of fiscal, relational, and educational kind of domains. First of all, the fiscal stuff that I've seen how important it is for them to protect funds by making sure that they're used appropriately, using those funds how they're supposed to be spent, for the things they're supposed to be spent for, but also making sure that all those funds are used completely when they're supposed to be, making sure that I think it's the general fund, for example, that has to be used up completely at the end of the year. Making sure that the funding that we have is protected so that we don't go without later on. I've also been impressed with their creativity in finding ways to fund priorities. So when issues come up that we need to get teachers trained on a certain thing or get materials for a certain thing, being creative in where funds can come from, looking at the different options and different funds we have, and sometimes braiding those funds in a way that makes sure that we get what we need for our kids and our teachers. And then also recognizing how budgets can get constrained by certain variables. The example in our district is that currently teachers are given 100% of a single employee healthcare plan. We pay the entire thing, and in the negotiated agreement it says we pay 100%. We're trying to get the get that to a defined contribution. It might be equal to 100%, but we want a specific number on that, because right now, when it says 100%, it kind of constrains the budget, where we have to anticipate that that's going to go up over the next 2-3 years, and so we have to make sure we have enough money to be able to cover that going up without being able to negotiate that number. We have to have be more cognizant of our cash balances and what we're carrying over. Relationally, it's been interesting to see how our district administrator has recognized which stakeholders need to be a part of key decisions. So if we're making decisions that might affect the city of Hays or the Hays Rec Commission or other entities, whether it's internally or externally, making sure that they're at least a part of the decision, have some heads up about what's going on, finding that when people are a part of the decision, or at least know about it, aren't surprised by it, they generally go a whole lot better. I've also been interested to see how my superintendent has taken to controlling our story, making sure that not only are we sharing all of the good things, but making sure we're sharing those things that make it difficult for us to work. And in our case, we've been trying to get a bond issue passed for several years. And so he's gone to make sure that our story is being told of the conditions in our schools that are making it difficult to educate kids in safe places. And so making sure that people know that we're not just trying to ask for money just because we want more money. It's because we want to make sure we have the right places to educate our kids. And then educationally, seeing how they base their priorities on state level needs through KISA, but also looking at local needs and realizing sometimes it might be better to move staff from one building to another to meet a need that might be growing in that other building. And then the use of data. We meet weekly with our district admin team, and we're constantly looking at data about how certain programs are being used, how student growth is going, making sure that we're making decisions based on the realities that are happening in our schools. Just because it can't just be about what we think is happening, but what really is happening. My own gaps, fiscally, my gaps are mostly in the areas of ancillary costs. I understand salary and keeping track of personnel, or the personnel salary stuff, but one thing I hadn't really thought about was the impact of benefits and payroll taxes and other things like that just kind of balloon that cost and make it, it was definitely a gap before I got into my current position, and it's still something I'm not completely, I know it's there, but I couldn't tell you what all of the details are. Relationally, it's been really challenging to manage a large number of relationships between parties that have different objectives. So having to have relationships with parents, general ed teachers, and special ed teachers, that's been pretty challenging, making sure that everybody is working in the same direction towards the same goals of betterment for the kids that we work with, and making sure that expectations are just clear. That's been really challenging. And then educationally, it's been recognizing how difficult it is to get a large number of people to meet the requirements of a system. So if we're trying to change something, get our teachers to do something different, trying to get 80 people spread across 16 buildings to do it a certain way is challenging. Figuring out that, we've got to communicate it in different ways, or multiple times. That's been definitely a learning experience, but it's coming along. And then recognizing that systems, if it's something that is difficult to adapt once it's started, so if it's tightly coupled, then the system has to be simple. But if it's something that you can kind of adapt and call audibles in the middle of, then it can be a little bit more complex. But it can't be complex and tightly coupled, or you're going to have a lot of issues and a lot of mistakes. So we've been working with that, especially through our IEP system and other processes in the special ed world, making sure that those systems actually work more effectively. And then my plan for getting a little bit better at, or understanding district leadership a little bit more, is first of all seeking opportunities to engage with the current district leaders I work with, as well as some retired ones that are still in the community, making sure I talk with them a lot and get their perspectives, because there's nothing like learning from people who are doing it already. Another thing, I've read a lot of Peter Drucker about management and being an effective executive. A lot of his books focus on the business world, and I wanted to, how for-profit and non-profit organizations work. Some of their motivations just are a little bit different, so they're organized a little bit differently. So my goal is to read through Managing the Nonprofit Organization by Peter Drucker to kind of get a better understanding of how the dynamics he talks about with for-profit, how those might need to be adapted a little bit for a nonprofit organization like a school. And then one thing I'm going to do is identify key decision points in my district and others that might make the news, and reflect on what I would want to know, how I would try to gather that information, and what decision I would have made. And then ultimately I'll reflect with my mentor on that to kind of get a little bit more decision-making prowess with situations where we already know what the outcome was, or at least part of the outcome, and also where it's not my responsibility for the end. So it's a little bit a safer way to kind of practice decision-making. Ultimately, I look forward to learning with everybody here. I'm hoping that the class will go well and that we'll be able to learn from each other. And if you're ever in Hayes, I'd love to get coffee with you and talk through how things are going for you. But otherwise, have a great rest of the day. Bye.